Why is Khabib Nurmagomedov impossible to defeat? Why is his fighting style so dominant? And what is Father's plan? Khabib Nurmagomedov started his UFC career as a 16-0 undefeated fighter. Impressive indeed, but nothing too crazy, I guess. Lots of people are undefeated before they enter the octagon, but Khabib ended up staying undefeated throughout his career, and he retired at 29-0. Hell, he lost a grand total of 2 rounds across 12 fights. How and why, you ask? It is important to consider his combat sports upbringing and the formative years of his career. Khabib was born and raised in Dagestan, and from an early age, he was expected to be a top-level athlete. His father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, was a former military veteran, and he had a goal in mind for Khabib: make him UFC champion. The first step was to choose a suitable foundation. Wrestling is often regarded as the best base for an MMA fighter, but allow me to introduce a viable contender: Combat Sambo. When translated from Russian, Sambo means self-defense without weapons. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, Combat Sambo is basically MMA with the addition of a gi and headgear. You punch people in the mouth and you try to break their limbs in submissions. Sounds like pretty good training for an eventual MMA career, and luckily for Khabib, his father happened to be one of the best Combat Sambo coaches around. This martial art does have a reputation of being one of the toughest. It does not have a singular discipline like jiu-jitsu, where you learn to grapple, or boxing, where you learn to punch. To be a competent sambist, you'll have to learn how to fight on the ground and on the feet. But what makes winning a sambo tournament such a heavy feather in the cap is the massive talent pool. Iron sharpens iron, they say. And with so many killers competing in Combat Sambo, you have to be really damn good to break through and actually achieve something. Khabib and Islam had to go through this: grueling training sessions and hellish sparring sessions against fellow sambists. This unholy grind, day in and day out, sharpened their skills, of course, but also contributed to a healthier mindset for an athlete. Then, in 2012, Khabib, the hyped prospect from Dagestan, made his UFC debut. He won his first fight by submission. Decent start, but no way he was going to keep this up. Then he won his second fight with minimum effort, and third, and the way he won, mauling his opponents on the ground, was exactly what he had done in the regional circuit over in Russia. A few fights into his UFC career, and people were already talking about this guy as the uncrowned champion. This guy was landing 21 takedowns in a fight, calmly talking to his victims while he mauled them, and he was not losing. That O was still there. Despite his immaculate performances inside the octagon, one criticism against Khabib remained. His resume was a little too thin, and he had yet to replicate his dominance against the elite lightweights. Between fight cancellations and various injuries, Khabib had difficulty stepping in the cage. But at UFC 205, the Eagle finally began his championship conquest. Khabib fought against Al Iaquinta for the vacant title. This was his first championship fight, but Khabib did not go out of his way to put on a special show or anything. The first couple of rounds, we saw vintage Khabib: pressure, pace, and grappling, which turned into a maul fest real quick, as Al Iaquinta was not able to get the Dagestani off him. Another dominant decision for Khabib, and while he won the championship, it was not undisputed, at least not yet. The actual unification bout was the biggest MMA fight of all time, against Conor McGregor at UFC 229. As a means to build up the fight, Conor McGregor flung whatever shit came to mind, and Khabib was visibly irate. This was certainly done on purpose by Conor. Get the undefeated Dagestani, his worst matchup in the division, mad enough that he decides to swing for the head, and Conor catches him with a counter. But 15 seconds into the round, Khabib shot for a takedown, eventually got it, and it began. After enduring Khabib's weight for 1 round, Conor was wary of the takedown threat, and as soon as Khabib feinted a takedown, Conor dropped his hands to defend. His guard opened up, and Khabib knocked the striker down with a monstrous right hand. Unbelievable! He knocked down the untouchable striker in Conor McGregor, chased him as he tried to recover, and once he got his rival down, the mauling commenced. And honestly, Conor tried. He tried to get up, even smashed an illegal knee to the skull in an effort to get up. But with Khabib on top, his lead arm isolated, and his legs trapped, Conor could not do much except eat punches to the face and hope to survive to the next round. When Conor walked back to the stool at the end, he had a shiner on his face and a crack on his spirit. Round 3, and Khabib kept it standing. Slapped him a few times to teach him respect, but in the 4th round, it was time to end it. After completing a takedown along the cage, Khabib punished Conor a bit more and snatched his neck in a crank to force the tap out. Once Conor tapped, Khabib cemented his status as the undisputed lineal champion of 155. The trash talk and the mind games of the Irishman did not amount to anything, and Khabib did what his coaches and his father instructed him to do: stick to the plan. Khabib fought 2 more times after defeating Conor, defending his title against 2 of the most dangerous lightweights in Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. It is an absolute pity he only fought 2 more times, as he was improving. His striking was definitely getting better, but Khabib stuck to what he was told, relied on heavy pressure and grappling, and got the wins. At no point did Khabib, aside from the 3rd round with an exhausted Conor McGregor, kept the fight standing to prove a point. No matter the stakes, the stage, or the opponent, you could not get this guy to deviate from the game plan. Or, as Khabib and his coach often said, father's plan. Sounds like a pretty simple concept in theory, but difficult to execute consistently. Father's plan was drilled into Khabib's head when he was a kid. Stick to what you do best and don't take unnecessary risks when you don't have to. Every coach advises their fighter to follow the game plan, but once you're actually in there, a lot of factors can influence. Maybe the crowd wants to see a brawl and you oblige. Maybe the UFC told you to put on a show or you get cut. Or maybe you despise the other guy and want to knock him out. When you have a coach like Abdulmanap waking you up early hours in the morning, putting you through a vigorous training routine, and arranging a literal bear as your training partner, not only do you get better in skills and stronger in strength, you also develop discipline and an affinity for listening to your coach, even when the arena goes nuts. Khabib rose to the very top of the UFC following this plan, but father's plan extends to all students of Abdulmanap. As per the arrangement, after Khabib was done, his childhood friend, Islam, was the next guy in line.
Khabib retired, now it is his turn. That is the legacy, that is what they've been training for. That has been the plan all along.
Islam too entered the UFC undefeated, but he could not maintain that O like his childhood friend. His ground game was as good as Khabib's, but in his 2nd UFC fight, Islam decided to strike when his skills were not as good as he thought they would be, and he paid for it by getting knocked out in the 1st round.
Работа, я считаю, самым большим провалом, это я согласился с Хавьером Мендезом идти в обмен, когда дрался Ислам Макхачев. Он очень опасен в 1-м раунде. На что Хавьер сказал: Ислам готов, дай ему это сделать. Я не был согласен с этим планом. И Ислам Макхачев рухнул, упал, это первое его поражение.
Always listen to the coach, especially when he happens to be Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. The legacies of Khabib and now Islam highlight the importance of discipline, coachability, and sustained respect towards people who brought you to where you are. Their success in the octagon is more than just skill, it's dedication. They were not just trained to be good fighters, they were also engineered to remain good students, no matter the stakes on the line or the stage where you stand. Put all those together, skill, dedication, and implementing father's plan no matter what, and you start to realize why Khabib dominated the way he did, and why Islam is dominating the way he is doing right now.